Why does this matter?
It matters because Twitter is where millions of people get their news, and it has become a forum in which people exercise their speech. Hopefully free, and I think probably best characterised as free-ish. What you were setting out in your introduction, I think, is right. Increasing numbers of accounts have been blocked, frozen for 28 days and so forth. And I'm afraid my suspicion is a large number of them tend to be politically on the right. People on the left have answered that, have looked at that and answered it by saying, well, Twitter's a private company, it can do what it likes. I look forward to them cleaving to that point of view when it's owned by Elon Musk.
Well, I'm not even sure that left and right exists anymore after the last 2 years that we've had. I think that, to some extent, is a bit outdated. You are either pro-libertarian, you are a freedom believer in freedom and the rights of the individual, or you are not, I would argue. Frank?
I agree with you. And the tragedy is that those people who are the real free spirits and who kind of have opinions which go against the grain are often marginalized by Twitter. And very often, sort of people who read my articles tell me that Twitter tells them that this article is, not dangerous, but they got a particular expression. That's right, expression that they use. So there is a speech issue here, and sort of Alex is absolutely right. Although it's a private company, it's a public infrastructure, and that's the tragedy. The trouble is that even though Musk says that he believes in free speech, it's not going to change anything, because aside from Twitter, we have governments like our own who are passing new laws all the time, which basically try to regulate Twitter. And now, for example, they got this new law coming through.
The online harm safety bill.
Exactly, which is going to make things even worse. And this is a conservative government that's bringing that in.
And when you say even worse, just to clarify, what that means actually is that social media will be regulated in the way that the mainstream media.
It is, and there's this impulse on the part of public authorities to try to please everybody and not to be too offensive. And they forget the fact that any idea that's a serious good idea will offend somebody. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a good idea.
The freedom of speech has to include the freedom to offend. Otherwise, it's not free at all. You can't just be... if free speech is only things you like, then there's no real meaningful free speech at all.
Nabila, I don't know whether... Are you busy on Twitter? Are you a busy Twitterer?
Relatively busy, yeah. I use it a lot as a journalist.
What do you use it for?
Well, mainly to interact with colleagues, follow the news, and post my own journalistic work. Yeah.
Do you think it's a force for good? And do we need it to be entirely free from censorship in order to do what it is meant to do?
Well, I think generally speaking, it's a very good thing. But, my own view on freedom of expression is very basic. I think there should be no censorship of any words that are not illegal and which indeed respect provable facts. And that's the bottom line, facts and truth. And people often forget that public decency and indeed the freedom not to be abused are actually firmly protected by a raft of legislation. So, for example, if you abuse somebody, then you are committing a criminal offence, and you are likely, and rightly, likely to end up being convicted. Now, this won't change, no matter who is in charge of social media.
Yeah.
And yes, you can argue that it's very difficult to report someone, or indeed prosecute someone, but this is no different to anything else. And I think the principle that we have to bear in mind is that illegal activity is not allowed, and there's no need for special restrictions when it comes to apply that to freedom of speech. And similarly, I think one of the problems we're having, and we will always have, in establishing what are alleged facts, what alleged facts are true, and indeed which ones are being made up. But I think in that area, we also have to use our common sense and be sensible about all these cases. If, there's a pattern of someone who is a provable liar, then you can imply that, this person will be hard to be taken seriously.
How many of us would have to think it doesn't exist for it for us to fail to engage with it? Because we are engaging on it. I'm on it a lot. And I know that you have to be careful. I don't want to be careful. But we're still using it, even though the majority of us feel that we are being censored in some way.
Yeah. Well, we have no choice because, unfortunately, we haven't got a platform like Twitter. And Twitter is really quite important because anybody who's anybody that matters is on it. I'm a free speech absolutist. I don't accept the fact that, for example, we're in a position to decide what is true and what isn't.
Exactly.
I know what is true, but very often, I've heard people say what I think is true to be denounced for promoting fake news.
And I would still allow that, though, because I know, I think that I know what is true, but other people have different perspectives. And if we give up to the platform the ability to decide what facts are, then effectively we allow them to censor what people say, in a sense of disagreement, effectively, and say there is one form of truth and it is theirs. But we also empower those people to basically police new ideas, because when new ideas come up, people always think that they're wrong, and it's only through free debate and free discussion that they flourish.
And it's only now that we discovered that all these fake news about, for example, the pandemic is now actually seen as the truth, sort of a year after the event. So we have a situation where we were told that China is exemplary in the way they handle the pandemic. We're going to learn from China. You look at the situation in Shanghai today, and all of a sudden it becomes very, very clear that that was just fake. They were the ones with the fake news, not our side.
Well, I mean, obviously the pandemic has. This is what I think has made a lot of us aware, and maybe 'twas ever thus. Maybe Twitter was always more of a political setting than we may have realised. But just to give you an idea of some of this is from Twitter's own pages, where they say we'll apply labels to tweets. So this is a label basically to say that this is misinformation, and you get one strike in accordance with the strike policy, and I think a couple, and then you get a ban. But it says false or misleading information about preventative measures one can take to avoid infection, such as claims that face masks cause bacterial pneumonia or do not work to reduce transmission. Now, there's a whole host of them that they use in relation to COVID, which are scientifically debatable. And so when they are saying, well, this is fact, that's science denying, is it not, Nabella, when it's talking about the pandemic and COVID? I mean, they're saying this is what we will take you down for. That's propaganda.
Well, I think we have to look at situations as they come up and deal with them accordingly. But I think most of the time, if some people want to make themselves look stupid, at least we can call them out. And, I think what bothers me about social media is the really nasty stuff when you start breaching the law. And I think one solution to deal with that, potentially, is to insist that every user has to reveal their identity and why not, in some cases, linked their account to a credit card number.
Oh, no, I would disagree with that.
So that would allow, let me carry on with my argument, that could even allow suspensions and even fines if, we come across really bad behaviour. And I think, generally speaking, Twitter users are very good at regulating each other.
But you see, saying that masks work would be or saying that masks don't work, would be considered really bad behaviour by Twitter, and that could get you taken off, whereas I can find you thousands of doctors.
I don't approve of anybody being taken off. There've been discussions about, Trump being taken off Twitter. Why are the Taliban on Twitter, for example? Why is Putin on Twitter, for example? I think, in the end, you have to call out those people and interact with them. It's like in life, you have to deal with people you disagree with, as long as you respect the law.
The only thing that you can censor legitimately is incitement to violence.
Yes.
I think that's something where we draw the line, but anything else, I think, is open game. That's what free exchange of views is really all about.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.